I moved to Millbrook in late September. The apartment was cheap, $650 a month for a one-bedroom on the second floor of a converted house on Archer Street. Old neighborhood, quiet, mostly retirees and a few Section 8 families. The landlord, a guy named Pete with a limp and a Broncos cap, handed me the keys without much ceremony. No lease, just a handshake and Venmo on the first of the month. I didn't ask questions. The place was fine. Creaky floors, yellowed linoleum in the kitchen, but clean enough. I work remote, data entry for an insurance company, so I don't need much. A desk, a bed, Wi-Fi. The window in my living room faced Archer Street, and across the street, maybe 40 yards away, was the burned house. I noticed it the first day. Hard not to. The structure was still standing, barely. Blackened wood frame, roof caved in on one side, windows gone. The front wall had collapsed inward, exposing charred beams like ribs. Weeds had grown up through the foundation, tall and dry. The yard was overgrown, chain-link fence half fallen. No condemned sign, no demolition notice, just sitting there. I asked Pete about it when he came by to fix the bathroom faucet a week later. He told me what I'd already guessed. Family died. 5-6 years ago, maybe. Fire started at night. Father, mother, 2 kids. They never got out. He said the city was supposed to tear it down, but there was some legal shit with the estate and insurance, so it just sat there. When I asked if anyone ever went in there, he looked at me like I'd asked something stupid and said he wouldn't go near it. Place was unstable. Roof could come down and nobody would find you for a week. Then he told me rent was due Friday and left. After he was gone, I stood at the window and looked at the house again. It was October now, getting dark earlier. The streetlight on the corner barely reached it. Most of the structure was shadow. That night I woke up around 3 a.m. Dry mouth, needed water. I got up, went to the kitchen, drank from the tap. On my way back to the bedroom, I passed the living room window. There was a light across the street. Not bright. A small moving light. Yellowish. Like a phone screen or a flashlight. It was inside the burned house, visible through the empty window frames. It moved slowly from left to right, then disappeared. I stood there for maybe 2 minutes. The light didn't come back. Probably just someone cutting through the yard, I thought, or kids messing around. I went back to bed, but I didn't fall asleep right away. I kept thinking about the light, the way it moved, slow, deliberate, not frantic like a kid would move, not aimless like someone drunk or high, like someone looking for something. The light appeared again 3 nights later. Same time. A little after 3 a.m. I woke up because a car alarm went off somewhere down the block, one of those stuttering honks that cycles for 30 seconds, then stops. I lay there annoyed, waiting for it to quit. When it finally did, the silence felt heavy. I got up to piss, past the window on the way back. The light was there again. This time it was stationary, positioned in what I guessed was the back corner of the house, near where the roof had caved in. Just sitting there, a dull yellow glow. I watched for maybe a minute. Then it switched off. I pulled out my phone, checked the time. 3:17 a.m. In the morning, I convinced myself it was nothing. Homeless guy, maybe. Someone using the ruins for shelter. It happened. Millbrook wasn't a big city, but it had its share of people with nowhere to go. The burned house would be dry enough in some spots, hidden from the street. I didn't think about it much during the day. Work, groceries, a call with my sister in Denver, normal shit. But that night, I kept the blinds open. I told myself I wasn't watching for anything, just didn't feel like closing them. I fell asleep on the couch around midnight watching YouTube. Woke up at 2:50 a.m., phone dead on my chest. The room was dark except for the streetlight outside. I sat up, rubbed my eyes, looked at the window. No light across the street. Just the black outline of the house against the slightly lighter sky. I plugged my phone in, went to the bathroom, brushed my teeth, came back to the living room, checked the window again. The light was there. Same spot as before. Back corner. But now it was moving. Slowly, side to side. like someone sweeping a flashlight across the ground. I moved closer to the window, staying back far enough that I wouldn't be visible from the street. The light continued its slow sweep. Then it paused, held steady for a few seconds, and went out. I waited. 5 minutes, 10, nothing. I pulled the blinds closed and went to bed. The next day, I saw my downstairs neighbor for the first time in a week. Her name was Lynn, 50s, worked night shifts at the hospital. She was getting out of her car when I came back from the corner store. I stopped and asked if she ever noticed anyone going into that burned house across the street. She looked tired, asked me why I wanted to know. I told her I'd seen a light over there at night a couple times and wondered if it was squatters or whatever. She was quiet for a second, then told me she worked nights and wasn't here. Then she added that people don't go in there. Just don't. She went inside before I could ask anything else. I stood there holding my grocery bag, ramen, eggs, a bag of apples, and looked at the house again. In daylight, it looked even worse. The charred wood was splintered and brittle. The weeds were waist-high in some places. There was trash caught in the fence, plastic bags, faded beer cans. It didn't look like a place anyone would want to go. On Friday, I paid rent. Pete came by to collect. Same Broncos cap, same limp. He asked if I was settling in okay. I said, yeah, fine. Then I asked if he ever saw anyone going in that house across the street. He said no without looking at me. I told him I'd seen a light at night, like someone in there with a flashlight. He folded the cash I'd given him and tucked it into his jacket pocket. Said it could be kids, could be a lot of things. Then he looked at me and told me not to worry about it. Mind your business, you'll be fine. He left before I could say anything else. After he was gone, I sat at my desk and tried to work, but I kept losing focus. I looked up the address of the burned house on Google Maps. 412 Archer Street. Street view showed it before the fire. A small single-story house, white siding, neat lawn, a kid's bike on the porch. I searched for news articles. Found one from October 2018. 4 dead in Millbrook house fire. Victims identified as Robert Kern, 39, Michelle Kern, 37, and their children Ethan, 8, and Sophie, 5. Fire investigators believed the blaze started in the living room, possibly due to faulty wiring. Neighbors reported seeing flames around 2 a.m., but emergency crews were unable to save the family. The cause remained under investigation. I scrolled through a few more articles. Follow-ups mentioned the investigation was closed, cause ruled accidental. Insurance dispute delayed demolition. Family had no other relatives in the area. Estate went into limbo. I closed the laptop. That night, I kept the blinds open again. At 3:08 a.m., I woke up on the couch. I don't know what woke me. No car alarm this time, no noise, just a feeling. I looked at the window. The light was there. But this time, it wasn't inside the house. It was in the yard, moving toward the street. I sat up, heart suddenly loud in my ears. The light bobbed slightly, like someone walking with a flashlight. It reached the sidewalk, paused, then turned left and moved down Archer Street away from my building. I watched until it disappeared around the corner. I sat there for a long time. My mouth was dry, my hands were cold. At 6 a.m., I went outside. The street was empty. Early morning light, gray and flat. I crossed the street and stood on the sidewalk in front of 412 Archer. The fence was rusted, gate half open. I didn't go in, just stood there looking at the house. The smell hit me then. Faint, but distinct. Smoke. Old smoke, like the smell that clings to fabric long after a fire. But also something else, something sharper. Chemical, almost. I turned to leave. That's when I saw it. On the sidewalk, maybe 10 feet from where I stood. A small pile of ash, and next to it, a toy, a plastic action figure. Melted on one side, the face warped and blackened. I stared at it. Then I walked back to my apartment, locked the door, and sat on the couch until the sun came up. I didn't leave the apartment all weekend. Saturday, I told myself I was just tired. Caught up on work, ordered delivery, watched movies on my laptop. But I kept checking the window, every hour, maybe more. The burned house sat there, lifeless and gray in the October drizzle. The toy was gone from the sidewalk. I noticed that Saturday afternoon. Either someone picked it up or the rain washed it away. The ash was gone too. I thought about calling the police. But what would I say? Someone's walking around a burned house at night. There's ash on the sidewalk. They'd tell me the same thing Pete did. Mind your business. Sunday night, I barely slept. Lay in bed with my phone, scrolling through nothing, waiting for 3 a.m. When it came, I got up and looked out the window. No light. I watched for 20 minutes, nothing. I went back to bed but didn't sleep. Around 5 a.m., I finally dozed off. Monday morning, I had a dentist appointment across town. I left around 9, took the bus, sat in the waiting room flipping through a 2-year-old magazine. The hygienist was chatty. I gave one-word answers. She asked if I was okay. I said I was fine. I got back to the apartment around noon. The door was locked. Nothing looked different. But when I walked into the living room, I stopped. There was a smell. Smoke. Faint, but unmistakable. Like someone had been burning paper or wood. I checked the kitchen. Stove off, nothing in the trash. Checked the bathroom, the bedroom, nothing. I opened the windows, turned on a fan, told myself it was coming from outside, someone's fireplace, a neighbor burning leaves. But it was 60 degrees out. Nobody was burning anything. The smell faded after an hour. I sat at my desk and tried to work. Couldn't focus. Around 3 p.m., I gave up and made coffee. While I was waiting for the pot, I looked out the window. Someone was standing in front of the burned house. A man. Average height, dark jacket, hood up. He was standing on the sidewalk, facing the house, hands in his pockets. Just standing there. I watched him for maybe 5 minutes. He didn't move. Then a car drove by, and when it passed, he was gone. That night, I didn't wait up. I went to bed early, around 10 p.m., left the bedroom door open so I could see the living room window from the bed. I woke up at 2:47 a.m. The apartment was cold. I'd left the window cracked earlier to air out the smoke smell and forgot to close it. I got up, crossed the living room. That's when I saw it, on the windowsill, outside on the ledge. Another toy, a small plastic doll, naked, one arm missing, blackened, like it had been in a fire. I stood there staring at it. Then I grabbed my phone, turned on the flashlight, and looked out the window. The street was empty. I looked at the burned house. Dark. No light, no movement. I looked down at the sidewalk below my window. Nothing. I went to the front door, unlocked it, stepped into the hallway. The building was silent. I went downstairs, out the front door onto the porch. Cold air, smell of wet leaves. The street was dead quiet. I looked up at my window. Second floor, maybe 12 feet off the ground. No fire escape on this side. No ladder, no tree close enough to climb. The doll was still there on the ledge. I went back inside, locked the door, pushed a chair against it. I didn't sleep the rest of the night. Tuesday morning, I called Pete. He sounded annoyed when he picked up. I told him someone had been leaving things outside my window. Burned toys. Ash. He asked what I meant. I explained someone had put them on my windowsill outside. He asked if I'd seen who. I said no. He asked if I'd called the cops. I said not yet. He sighed and told me if I had a problem with harassment, that was a police thing. He couldn't do anything about it. I asked him to just come look, maybe check the area. He cut me off and said he was in Colorado Springs till Thursday, and if I wanted him to do something, call Thursday. Then he hung up. I sat there holding the phone. Then I put on a jacket and went outside. The doll was still on the windowsill. I walked around the side of the building, stood under my window. The ground was soft from rain, packed dirt and dead grass. There were footprints. Boot prints looked like. Size 10, maybe 11. Recent. The edges were still sharp, not washed out. They came from the alley behind the building, stopped under my window, then went back the same way. I followed them into the alley. They disappeared halfway down, where the ground turned to gravel. I stood there, heart pounding, looking at the back of the building. My window was visible from here. So was the burned house, across the street and down about 30 yards. I pulled out my phone and took pictures of the prints. Then I went back inside and locked every window in the apartment. I tried to work. Couldn't. Around 2 p.m., I walked to the corner store, bought a bottle of water and a pack of cigarettes, even though I quit 3 years ago. The guy behind the counter was watching TV, some courtroom show. I asked if he lived around here. He glanced at me and said, yeah. I asked if he knew anything about that burned house on Archer, the one where the family died. His expression went flat. He said no. I asked if he ever saw anyone going in there. He said no again and handed me my change. Told me to have a good one in a tone that meant the conversation was over. Outside, I lit a cigarette and stood on the curb. My hands were shaking. A woman walked past with a stroller. An old guy raking leaves in his yard across the street. Normal afternoon, normal neighborhood. I looked down Archer toward my building. The man in the dark jacket was standing on the sidewalk again, same spot as yesterday, facing the burned house. I started walking toward him. He didn't move. I got within 20 yards and called out to him, asked if he lived around here. He turned his head slightly. I couldn't see his face under the hood. I called out again, louder. He stood there for another few seconds. Then he turned and walked away. Not fast, not running, just walked. Down the sidewalk, around the corner, gone. I stood there, pulse hammering in my ears. Then I went back to the apartment and deadbolted the door. That night, I didn't even try to sleep. I sat on the couch with the lights off, watching the window. I'd pulled the doll inside with a plastic bag, didn't want to touch it directly. It sat on the kitchen counter now, staring at nothing with its half-melted face. At 3:02 a.m., the light appeared across the street. Inside the burned house again, back corner same as before. It moved slowly, sweeping side to side. Then it stopped and turned toward my window. I froze. The light stayed pointed at me for maybe 10 seconds. Then it went out. I sat there in the dark, not moving, barely breathing. My phone buzzed. I grabbed it. Unknown number, local area code. I stared at the screen. It rang 4 times, then stopped. No voicemail. 10 seconds later, a text from the same number. Stop watching. I dropped the phone. It clattered onto the floor. I stood up, grabbed my keys and wallet, went to the door. Stopped. Where was I going to go? My car was parked on the street. I'd have to walk past the burned house to get to it. I looked out the window. The street was empty. I picked up my phone with shaking hands, opened the text again. Stop watching. I blocked the number. Another text came through immediately. Different number. I can see you. I turned off the lights in the living room, backed away from the window, went to the bedroom, shut the door, pushed the dresser in front of it, sat on the floor with my back against the bed. My phone buzzed again. I didn't look at it. It buzzed 4 more times in the next hour. I didn't look. Oh! I called 911 at 4:36 a.m. The dispatcher sounded tired. I told her someone had been harassing me, leaving things outside my apartment, sending threatening texts. She asked if I was in danger right now. I said I didn't know, maybe they were watching my apartment. She asked if someone was outside my residence now. I looked at my phone. 6 unread texts, all from different numbers. I hadn't opened them. I told her I didn't know, I couldn't see. I was in my bedroom. She asked for my address. I gave it to her. She told me to stay inside, keep my doors locked. She was sending an officer. I asked how long. She said 15-20 minutes. Told me to stay on the line. I stayed on the line. She asked questions. Had I seen the person? Did I know who it was? Had there been any direct threats? I answered. My voice sounded distant, like it wasn't mine. At 4:58 a.m., I heard a car outside. I told her I thought they were here. She told me to go ahead and look out the window, tell her what I saw. I moved the dresser, opened the bedroom door, went to the living room window, stayed back from it. A patrol car was parked in front of my building, lights off, 2 officers getting out. I told her they were here. She said okay, she was going to let me go, told me to go down and talk to them. I hung up, grabbed my keys, went downstairs. The officers were on the porch. Both men, one older with gray at his temples, one younger, maybe late 20s. The older one asked if I was the one who called. I said yeah. He told me to go inside. We went up to my apartment. I turned on the lights. The place looked worse than I thought. Empty coffee cups on the counter, papers scattered on the desk, the burned doll still sitting in the plastic bag on the kitchen counter. The younger cop noticed it immediately and asked what it was. I told him someone left it on my windowsill outside. He looked at the older cop, then at me. Asked when. I said yesterday morning. Told them there was another one before that. A toy soldier. And ash. On the sidewalk. The older cop pulled out a notepad and told me to walk him through what had been happening. I told him everything. The lights in the burned house, the man in the dark jacket, the footprints, the texts. He wrote it down, expression neutral. When I finished, he looked at the younger cop and told him to check outside, look for prints, see if anyone was around. The younger cop nodded and left. The older cop looked at me and asked about the lights I'd been seeing in the burned house. How many times? I said 4, maybe 5. He asked if it was the same time each night. I said around 3 a.m. He asked if I'd ever gone over there, looked inside. I said no. He asked why not. I told him because it was a burned-out house where 4 people died, why would I? He didn't react, just asked to see the texts. I unlocked my phone, opened the messages, 6 texts, all unread. I handed him the phone. He read them. His expression didn't change. I asked what they said. He turned the screen toward me. "Stop watching! I can see you. You don't belong here. Leave. Last warning, 3 a.m. I felt cold all over. The older cop said these were threats and asked if I knew anyone who'd want to scare me. Ex-girlfriend, former roommate, someone I'd had a falling out with. I said no, I just moved here 6 weeks ago. I didn't know anyone. He asked where I'd moved from. I said Albuquerque. Asked why I moved. I told him work, rent was cheaper here. He nodded. Handed me back the phone. Said he'd be honest with me. Someone was messing with me, that was clear. But unless they made a direct threat or I could identify them, there wasn't much they could do. The texts were from burner apps, probably untraceable. The toys, the ash. That was harassment, but misdemeanor level unless it escalated. I said someone was outside my window. There were footprints. He said they documented, but footprints weren't a crime. I stared at him and asked what I was supposed to do. He told me to keep my doors locked. Document everything. Take pictures, save the texts. If I saw someone, call immediately. If the harassment continued, I could file for a restraining order, but I'd need to identify the person first. The younger cop came back in and said no one was outside. He'd found some prints under the window, but they were old. Rain had washed most of it out. The older cop closed his notepad and said they'd file a report. Told me if anything else happened, call them. I asked if that was it. He said that was it. They left. I locked the door behind them and stood in the middle of the living room. The sun was starting to come up. Gray light through the window. I looked across the street at the burned house. For the first time, I noticed something I hadn't before. The front door was open. Not much, maybe 6 inches, but it was open. I was sure it had been closed before. I grabbed my phone, zoomed in on the camera. The door was definitely open, and there was something inside, a shape just visible in the shadows. I took a picture, zoomed in on the photo. It was a sleeping bag, and next to it, a backpack. Someone was living there. I didn't know what to do. I sat on the couch, staring at the photo. The sleeping bag looked new. So did the backpack. Black, no visible brand. I called the police non-emergency line. A woman answered, and I told her I'd just filed a report about harassment. Officers were just at my place, and I thought I knew where the person was. She put me on hold, came back and said she saw the report, asked for the location. I told her the burned house across the street from me, 412 Archer. Someone was living inside. She asked if they were there now. I said I didn't know. I could see a sleeping bag and backpack through the door. She said, okay, she'd send someone to check it out. I asked when. She said an officer would be by sometime today. I asked if she could tell me when exactly. She said she couldn't give me an exact time. Someone would follow up. She hung up. I sat there looking at my phone. Then I looked out the window. The man in the dark jacket was standing in the yard of the burned house. He was facing my building. Even from this distance, I could tell he was looking directly at my window. I stepped back, heart pounding. Pulled out my phone, called 911. Told the dispatcher the person who'd been harassing me was outside right now, across the street, just standing there. She asked for my location. I gave her the address again. She told me to stay inside, she was sending someone now. I asked how long. She said 5 minutes, stay on the line. I moved to the side of the window where I could see without being seen. The man was still there. Then he started walking toward my building. I told the dispatcher he was coming toward me. She told me to stay inside, lock my doors. I said they were locked. He crossed the street, stepped onto the sidewalk, walked up to the front porch of my building. I heard the front door open downstairs. I told the dispatcher he was inside the building. She said officers were 2 minutes away. Do not open your door. I heard footsteps on the stairs. Slow, deliberate. They stopped outside my door. I stood there, phone pressed to my ear, staring at the door. A shadow moved in the gap under the door. Someone was standing right outside. I whispered that he was outside my door. She told me not to open it. Officers were almost there. Silence. Then a sound. Scratching. Something scratching at the door. Slow, deliberate. Fingernails, maybe, or something metal. I whispered, asking if she could hear that. She asked what. I said scratching at the door. She told me not to open the door. Officers were pulling up now. The scratching stopped. Footsteps, going back down the stairs. I heard the front door open and close. Then voices outside, radio static. The dispatcher told me officers were on scene. I could hang up. I hung up, went to the window. 2 patrol cars were parked outside. 4 officers. One was talking to Lynn, my downstairs neighbor, who'd just gotten home from her shift. The others were looking around. The man in the dark jacket was gone. I went downstairs. I told the nearest officer, same younger cop from before, that was him. He was just here. He came into the building. The cop said they didn't see anyone. I said he was scratching at my door. I heard him. The older cop came over and told me they'd checked the building. No one there but me and my neighbor. I said he went out the front door right before they got here. He asked which direction. I said I didn't know. I was upstairs. Lynn was standing on the porch, arms crossed. She said she didn't see anyone. I told her she just got here. She looked at me like I was crazy. The older cop put his hand on my shoulder and said he understood I was scared, but there was no one here. They'd checked. I told him to check the burned house. He was living there. I saw a sleeping bag. He exchanged a glance with the younger cop and said they'd check it. They walked across the street. I watched from the porch. They went up to the front door, pushed it open wider. The older cop pulled out a flashlight, shined it inside. They were in there for maybe 3 minutes. When they came out, the older cop walked back over and told me there was nothing in there. No sleeping bag, no backpack, just debris and ash. I said I took a picture. Pulled out my phone, opened the photo. He looked at it, asked if it was from this morning. I said an hour ago, maybe less. He zoomed in on the photo, studied it. Then he handed the phone back and said he didn't know what to tell me. There was nothing there now. I said someone moved it. He said maybe. I said I wasn't making this up. He said he didn't say I was. He looked tired. Told me they'd increase patrols on this street for the next few nights. Keep documenting everything. If I saw the guy again, call immediately and stay on the line. But right now, there was nothing they could charge anyone with. They left. I stood on the porch watching them drive away. Lynn went inside without looking at me. I looked across the street at the burned house. The front door was closed. Step 6, finale. I didn't go back inside right away. I stood on that porch for maybe 20 minutes watching the house. The sun was fully up now, pale October light making everything look washed out and gray. A few cars passed. A woman jogged by with headphones in. The street looked normal, safe, but I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched. Eventually, I went back upstairs, triple-checked the locks, pushed the couch against the door. Then I sat at my desk and opened my laptop. I searched for everything I could find about the fire. News articles, public records, property records. Most of it I'd already seen, but I dug deeper. Found a forum post from 2019, someone asking about the burned house on Archer. A few responses. One person said they'd lived on that street as a kid, remembered the Kern family. Nice people, quiet. The father worked at a warehouse, mother was a teacher's aide, kids were young. Another person responded saying the fire was suspicious. Insurance company had fought the payout, something about the investigation not adding up, but nothing was ever proven. The thread died after that. I kept searching. Found a Facebook memorial page for the family, a few dozen posts, mostly from 2018 and 2019. Rest in peace, gone too soon, thoughts and prayers, the usual. One post caught my eye from someone named David Marsh, posted in March 2020. It just said, "They didn't all die in the fire." No other context, no follow-up, no replies. I clicked on David Marsh's profile. The account was deactivated. I sat back in my chair staring at the screen. They didn't all die in the fire. I thought about the man in the dark jacket. The way he stood, the way he moved. Slow, deliberate, not frantic, not desperate. Familiar, like someone who knew the neighborhood, knew the house, knew me. I tried to sleep that afternoon, but couldn't. Every sound made me flinch. The building settling, pipes clanking, Lynn moving around downstairs. Around 5 p.m., my phone buzzed. A text, unknown number. I almost didn't open it, but I did. It was a photo. My living room, taken from outside through the window. The angle was wrong for street level. It was taken from higher up. Maybe a ladder, maybe the roof of the building across the street. I was in the photo, sitting at my desk, back to the window. Taken today? Maybe an hour ago. My hands went cold. Another text came through. Same number. You should have left. I dropped the phone on the desk and stood up. Went to the window, staying to the side. Looked out at the burned house. The front door was open again. Wider this time. And someone was standing in the doorway. The man in the dark jacket. Even from this distance, I could see he was looking directly at me. I grabbed my phone, called 911. The dispatcher answered and I started talking fast. Told her the person was there again, standing in the doorway of the burned house across the street. He'd just sent me a photo of me inside my apartment. She told me to stay calm. Officers were on their way. I asked how long. She said 5 minutes. I stayed on the line. Watched the man. He didn't move. Just stood there. 4 minutes passed. 5, 6. Then I heard sirens. The patrol car came around the corner, pulled up in front of the burned house. The man was gone. The officers got out. Same two from this morning. They walked up to the house, looked inside, came back out. One of them looked up at my window. I held up my phone, gestured to come up. They came up a few minutes later. I showed them the photo, the text. The older cop took my phone, studied it. His expression didn't change. He handed it back and told me this was escalating. I should file for a restraining order. I asked against who. I didn't know who this person was. He said the texts were evidence. They could try to trace the numbers, but it would take time. In the meantime, I should consider staying somewhere else for a few days. I asked if they found anything in the house. He said no, just ash and debris, same as before. I asked if they saw anyone. He said no. They left again. I packed a bag that night. Clothes, laptop, charger. Called my sister in Denver. She said I could stay with her as long as I needed. I bought a bus ticket for the next morning, but I didn't sleep. I sat on the couch with all the lights on, watching the window. At 2:58 a.m., my phone buzzed. Unknown number. 3 a.m. I stared at the text. Then I looked out the window. The burned house was dark, but the front door was wide open now, and there were lights inside. Not one light, multiple, moving, like several people with flashlights. I watched, heart pounding. The lights moved through the house, methodical, room to room, like they were searching for something, or preparing something. One of the lights stopped in the front window, pointed directly at me. Then all the lights went out at once. The house was dark again. I sat there barely breathing. My phone buzzed. Another text. Come over. I didn't move. Another text. We're waiting. I looked at the house. The front door was still open. I could see darkness inside. Nothing else. Another buzz. She wants to see you. My throat went dry. I thought about the memorial page, the Facebook post. They didn't all die in the fire. I thought about the news article. 4 dead. Robert, Michelle, Ethan, Sophie. But what if someone survived? What if someone got out? My hands were shaking. I set the phone down on the couch, stood up, went to the window. The house was still dark. Door open like a mouth. I should have left right then. Should have grabbed my bag and walked out and never looked back. But I kept thinking about that post. They didn't all die in the fire. I picked up my phone, typed a response. "Who is she?" The reply came instantly. "You know, I didn't know, but something in my gut twisted." Another text. "Sophie, she's been here the whole time." I felt my legs go weak. Sophie Kern, 5 years old when she died. Would be 10 or 11 now if she'd survived. Another text. "She wants to show you something." I typed back. "Show me what?" The response took longer this time, almost a full minute. "Where we sleep." I looked at the burned house, tried to see movement inside, couldn't see anything. Another text. "Come alone. Come now, don't call anyone." Then another. "Or we come to you." I stood there, phone in my hand, staring at those words. The bus left at 9 a.m., 7 hours from now. I could barricade the door, wait it out, call the police again and again until they took this seriously. Or I could go over there. See what this was? End it. My phone buzzed one more time. A photo? It was the side of my building, taken from ground level. My bedroom window was visible. The window I'd left cracked earlier to air out the smoke smell. The screen was cut. Someone could climb in any time they wanted. I put on my jacket, grabbed my keys and phone, went downstairs as quietly as I could. The street was empty, silent except for the hum of the streetlight. I crossed Archer, walked up to the fence of Fort 12. The gate was open. I pushed through, walked across the overgrown yard. Glass crunched under my feet. The smell hit me again. Smoke, ash, that chemical sharpness underneath. The front door was open. Darkness inside. I turned on my phone flashlight. The beam cut through the dark, illuminated, charred walls, collapsed ceiling beams, debris scattered across the floor. The doorway opened into what had been the living room. Most of the furniture was gone, just blackened outlines on the floor where things had burned. I stepped inside. The floor creaked under my weight. I tested each step, worried the boards would give way. My light swept across the room. Ash, pieces of melted plastic, something that might have been a couch once, now just a blackened frame. I heard something, a scraping sound, from the back of the house. I moved toward it, flashlight up. My breath was loud in my ears. The hallway was narrow, walls burned down to the studs in places. I could see the bathroom on the left, door hanging off its hinges. A bedroom on the right, completely gutted. Another bedroom at the end of the hall. The door was closed. The scraping sound came from behind it. I reached for the doorknob. It was warm. Not hot, but warm, like someone had been holding it. I turned it. The door opened. The room was smaller than the others, a kid's room. The walls were less damaged here, some of the drywall still intact. There were remnants of wallpaper, cartoon characters, faded and peeling. And in the corner, a sleeping bag, the backpack I'd seen in the photo. And sitting on the sleeping bag facing away from me was someone, small, thin, dark hair down to their shoulders. They didn't turn around. My flashlight beam shook. I tried to steady it. The figure spoke. A child's voice, soft. "You weren't supposed to watch." I couldn't move, couldn't speak. The voice again. "He told you to stop, but you kept watching." The figure shifted slightly, still not turning around. "Now you have to stay." I took a step back. The floor creaked. The figure's head tilted like it was listening. "Don't leave. He gets angry when people leave." My throat was tight. I forced words out. "Who gets angry?" "Daddy." The figure finally turned around. It wasn't a child. It was someone older. 20s maybe. Thin face, hollow eyes, hair matted and dirty. They were wearing clothes that looked too big, burned at the edges. They smiled. "He's been so lonely, ever since they took everyone away. But I came back. I always come back." I took another step backward. "You should stay too. It's better here. No one asks questions. No one makes you leave." I heard something behind me. Footsteps, slow, deliberate. I spun around. The man in the dark jacket was standing in the doorway. He'd pulled the hood back. I saw his face for the first time. Burned, badly. The left side was scar tissue, melted and reformed. One eye was clouded. His mouth was twisted into a permanent grimace. He didn't say anything, just looked at me. Then he stepped into the room. I backed up against the wall. My phone slipped from my hand, clattered to the floor. The flashlight rolled, casting wild shadows. The woman, girl, I didn't know what she was, stood up from the sleeping bag. "He doesn't like strangers, but you're not a stranger anymore. You've been watching. You've seen us." The man took another step closer. I could smell him now. Smoke and something worse, something rotting. "We're a family again, just like before. You can be part of it." I looked at the doorway. The man was blocking it. I looked at the window, boarded up. "No way out." The man reached out his hand, the burned one, fingers twisted and blackened. I pressed myself against the wall. He touched my shoulder. His grip was strong, and then he spoke. His voice was ruined, wet and rasping. "You're not leaving." I don't remember how I got out. I remember screaming. I remember throwing something, a piece of wood maybe. I remember running, crashing through the hallway, hitting my shoulder on the doorframe, stumbling out into the yard. I remember sirens. I remember someone grabbing me, an officer, asking if I was hurt. I remember pointing at the house, trying to explain. The man, the woman, the room. They went inside. I sat in the back of the patrol car, shaking. They were in there for 10 minutes. When they came out, the older cop walked over to me, opened the car door, asked me what I saw. I told him everything, the sleeping bag, the woman, the man with the burned face. He looked at me for a long time. Then he told me they didn't find anyone, just debris, ash, an old sleeping bag, but it was empty, covered in dust. Hadn't been used in months, maybe years. No woman, no man, nothing. I stared at him. He asked if I'd taken anything, pills, alcohol, anything that might explain this. I said no. He told me I was in shock. Told me to go to the hospital, get checked out. I said I wasn't going to the hospital. He said it wasn't optional. They kept me for observation, ran tests, blood work, CT scan. Everything came back normal. The doctor asked if I'd been under stress. I said yes. She asked if I had a history of mental illness. I said no. She asked if I'd been sleeping. I said not really. She prescribed me something for anxiety, told me to follow up with my primary care physician. I left the hospital around noon. My sister picked me up, drove me back to Archer Street to get my things. The apartment was exactly how I'd left it, door locked, nothing disturbed. I packed quickly, didn't look out the window. We left within an hour. That was 6 weeks ago. I'm in Denver now, staying with my sister until I figure things out. I found a new job, remote, different company. The pay's worse, but I don't care. I don't sleep well. When I do, I dream about the burned house, the room at the end of the hall, the woman with the hollow eyes, the man with the burned face and the ruined voice. Sometimes I wake up and smell smoke. Last week, I got a notification on my phone, a text from an unknown number. I almost deleted it without looking, but I opened it. It was a photo. The burned house on Archer Street. Someone was standing in the front yard, blurry, taken from far away, but I could see the dark jacket, the hood up, and in the window behind them, barely visible in the shadows, another figure, smaller, watching. The text below the photo said, "We're still here, waiting." I blocked the number, changed my phone number the next day, but 2 nights ago, I smelled smoke in my sister's apartment. Faint, just for a second. And yesterday morning, I found something on the doorstep, a small pile of ash, and next to it, a toy, a plastic car, melted on one side. I don't know what they want. I don't know why they chose me. I don't know if they're real or if I'm losing my mind, but I know they're not done, and I know I can't run far enough, because wherever I go, I'm still watching, and they're still watching back.